Hi, it's Kalia Hall Terali here, real estate investor coach in Washington, D.C. And today I want to spend more time talking to you about how to find investors to take over your contract when you're actually wholesaling real estate. And so what I'll first do is I'll first start off by talking about what is wholesaling for those of you who are not familiar with wholesaling. So basically wholesaling is when it's a type of real estate investing. And basically, what you do when you're wholesaling is you're looking for people who are distressed and want to sell their house. And so, as a wholesaler, you would actually meet with that homeowner who wants to sell their house, take a look at the repairs, and then make an offer to them to actually buy their house. But the difference with wholesaling is that instead of you actually getting a loan and actually acquiring the house, purchasing the house to flip or actually take the house and rent it out to tenants, you're actually just getting the property under contract, and then you're reassigning your contract to another investor for a fee. So essentially that's what wholesaling is. And so today what I want to talk about, I want to kind of go over 3 different simple ways to find people to take over your contract when you're looking to wholesale real estate. Hi Ashley, how are you? So one of the first ways is networking. So it's definitely good to have your business cards when you're getting started and going out to different events where real estate investors hang out. So you're probably wondering, where do they hang out? Well, one easy place to go is to the RIAs. Those are the real estate investor associations. You can go there. Most of those meetings are held like a certain day of the month. Could be like first Monday of the month, first Friday, something like that. And you can go and you can network with them because there's always there's quite a few investors that are there who are looking to pick up deals. Another place to look would be some town hall meetings, places where, let's say the government is talking about doing some development, things like that, or where they're talking about giving out funding for development. So also I would say going to meetings where the government is talking about doing development, your local government. Or they could be talking about rezoning, just anything like that. When you go to those type of meetings, normally investors are there because they want to talk about how their dollars are going to be affected when things are being rezoned and redeveloped and things like that. So that's another good place to go to meet people who you can actually wholesale your deals to. So we got the RIAs, we got the town hall meetings, the government meetings. So that's with your networking. Networking, again, is prospecting. But the second one with your marketing is actually direct mailers. So what you can do with that is actually pull up, like you can use your tax assessment database. Sometimes they have the sales in there. And you can go in there and you kind of map out your area that you want to target. So let's say if I was going to do a certain zip code, for instance, I can pull up anybody who's purchased using cash within the last, let's say within the last 6 months. So I can pull up anybody that, and I may use a price range because pretty much you'll find that a lot of these investors are focused on certain areas and they're using cash to actually invest in these properties. More than likely they're not using conventional financing for this. So people who are using cash and hard money, things like that, you can just kind of pull up a range or you can pull up everybody in that zip code and kind of look at it and you can say, okay, well these people are using cash and so I'm going to target these people. You can actually send them a letter or maybe even try to find their phone number. Sometimes it's more difficult to find their phone number because remember too, some of these people may be using LLCs. So for the tax assessment database, for that, what you have to do is you have to Google where you live. So let's say if I were doing DC, I would do Washington, DC Tax Assessment Office. And from there, that's how I would access the database of the tax assessments. So you would just have to Google wherever you live, let's say your county. If you were in, let's say, Maryland, for instance, Prince George's County real estate, or not real estate, but or the tax assessment or property assessment database. So you would have to be able to Google that to be able to find it. And so what you want to do is once you have the addresses, like, because the people are not living in the property, so more than likely they have an address. The tax assessment will have an address of the property address, but then there's another address that should be on file for that property, which is the mailing address where the owner is. And so what you would do is just basically mail to those people and in that letter just say, hey, you know, I'm a real estate investor, or I'm a real estate wholesaler. I come across deals on a regular basis and I want to try to wholesale you some deals. And so you can say, hey, give me a call, or sometimes people even have a website where the person can go to kind of access your deals if you have deals online. So that's using direct mail. And also too, you could, like again, I mentioned you could try to find the phone numbers, but more than likely if it's an LLC, you may or may not be able to, depending upon where you live, you may not be able to access the person. It may just be the resident agent of that company, but that may not be the individual who's actually handling that company. So it may not be the owner, it just may be somebody that lives in that city who's the resident agent, but they're not the owner of the company. So that's why direct mail will work better for that. Okay, so then also you can use the internet. So the internet, most people are familiar with like Craigslist, also like Facebook groups, things like that, just networking with other investors that are online. Some investors also decide to run Google paid ads. And what they'll do is they'll run ads basically just saying that, I'm sorry, I was looking out the window. But they'll run ads basically just saying, hey, get an exclusive list of insider deals or something like that. They'll run an ad, and then people who opt in for that freebie or that list will be the people, they'll give you their email address and their name or their phone number, and then you can reach out to those people to try to build your list up. So, of course, if you're using ads, a Facebook ad or a Google paid ad, you do have to pay for those. And also, too, if you're doing direct mail, you would also have to pay for that. Networking is probably one of the free ways. Another one could be when you're driving for dollars. Like, let's say you're driving around your neighborhood, you're looking for vacant properties. When you see people who are doing rehabs, if you see that the contractor is there, sometimes you can even go and ask them, hey, yeah, who's doing the rehab here? I'd like to get their number. Or sometimes that owner will even be there overseeing their project. And you can go and just introduce yourself, try to get their number. So that will be another prime way to see who's doing rehabs is by actually going around when you're getting your list of vacant properties. To also look for people who are there who are doing rehabs and just go and introduce yourself to people. And I think for myself, that's probably one of the biggest ways that I've been able to build up my list is by just going on the streets and just seeing who's doing what and going and talking to people in the neighborhood. So once you map out where you're trying to target, it's easier to kind of narrow in on who's doing what. And also the RIAs. But the RIAs can be hit or miss because you have two different types of people there. Most people who are going to the RIAs either want to learn or they're looking for deals. Actually, three types of people. So either they want to learn, they're looking for deals, or they're looking to sell something. So it's probably like one of the three. And some of those investors there are trying to get into rehabbing, but maybe they're not quite rehabbing. So I would say the best way to get the access to people who have the most cash, who are really doing deals, is either going around your neighborhood and introducing yourself to people who are doing rehabs, or going to these government meetings where you have people who are talking about redevelopment and things like that. Most of those prime developers and investors are at those meetings. So those would be the two that I would suggest when you're really trying to find people to wholesale your deals to. And really, for the most part, nowadays the market's pretty active. So if you're starting out and you want to wholesale, but you don't have anybody to wholesale your deals to, you can really just go ahead and start by, I always suggest starting with finding sellers, people who are distressed sellers, who are interested in selling. I would start with them, and you can also build up your list that way. Because if you're marketing a deal, even if, let's say, worst case scenario, you don't have anybody to wholesale your deals to, or maybe the deal's not right, the numbers are too tight, but by you actually going through the motion of advertising and marketing your deal to other investors, you'll come across people that are interested in looking for deals. So that way is also a good way to build up your list. I know most people want to start with the buyers because that makes them feel more comfortable when looking for sellers, but it's actually easier when you start by looking for sellers and people who want to sell their house and then work backwards or work forward. So anyway, does anybody have any questions just so far about what we discussed about finding people to take over your contract? So we talked about networking, using internet marketing, and then also using direct mailers to come across those people. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, well, if there's no questions, or if you tune in later and have any questions, just go ahead and feel free to drop them below the video, and I'll come back in and I'll answer your questions. And if you've gained value from this video or any of the other ones, please feel free to invite your friends or your family to the group if they're interested in learning about real estate investing. Okay, and bye for now.